Well, hello everyone. Welcome to World at War Comics. I got my good friend, Mr. T.S. Luther. He writes comics, and he is here to talk about his latest title. T.S., man, how are you today? It's good to see you.
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm TS and I write comics. I'm legally
Yes.
obligated to say that wherever I appear.
Yeah, I did get your last title, Tokyo Fire. So if someone hasn't got that, they need to check it out, man. The art was awesome, story was incredible. I even did a review on it because I liked it so much. And I also started off by saying I'm Tommy and I read comics just because I thought it was appropriate. TS, you start all your videos like that, man, and I absolutely love it, man.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words. I had a blast working on Tokyo Fire. Sky Hawkins was my co-creator on that one. I loved working with her. And that's the whole reason why I have the I'm TS and I write comics, like was because I needed to hawk Tokyo Fire on TikTok.
Well, you did pretty good, man. You got me to get it, and I actually really enjoyed it. And now you got this new title coming up, man. But before we jump into this new title, which is live on Kickstarter right now, so get ready. Let's go a little bit back, TS, and kind of find out where this passion for storytelling started. Was it at a young age? And then not only tell us when it started, was there someone in your life that was a big influence in your love for storytelling?
Oh, for sure. So if we're gonna go all the way back, I started with the most weird comics in the '90s was Archie comics. So Archie, Sonic, those were the comic books that I had in hand. But my life changed when, for Easter, my parents got me an Easter basket that was Superman themed, which was so strange. I wasn't a big Superman fan at the time. I didn't know anything about like superheroes really. And I found out later, and I put it all together. The reason why it was Superman themed is because he had just died in the comic books and was being resurrected. And my parents were Christian. And I was like, well, died, resurrection, we can get him into Jesus through Superman. And I think a little backfired a little bit. I'm not a gigantic Jesus fan, but I'm a huge Superman fan. That black costume with the mullet, that was like the changing point for me. So that and Sonic and Archie just really like blew up my world. And then, growing up in the '90s, all the Saturday morning cartoons, X-Men, Spider-Man, all that stuff. I'm even a big fan of the Fantastic Four '90s cartoon that nobody talks about. So like that like blew up my world. But I also grew up in northern Michigan and there was not a comic book store to be found. There was just nothing around. So it was like Walden Books was the chain near me that was 45 minutes out of town for me to find. So when I got there, every once in a while I could find a book. But it all changed when Civil War came out. They knew that they could make more money. And so Civil War was there on the shelf. And I saw Spider-Man with that Civil War, tag on there. And I understood for the first time what a crossover event was. I didn't know about those. I'm showing my age a little bit, but that changed everything. I bought everything I could from Civil War. J. Michael Straczynski was a big thing for me. Fell in love with his writing and everybody else who wrote during that time. And I've never looked back. I love comics,
Yeah.
and I have to write. It's like I have to now.
I love it, man. Well, then when did you come up with some of your own stories? And when did you decide, man, I would love to take some of these stories I've been sitting on and start producing my own comics? That's a big
Uh,
transition from a fan to a writer.
It really is, man. I mean, I had been writing since I was a little kid. Like during all those times, I was making up my own stories. I lied a lot as a child, which I thought was like a pathological thing. What it was like a need to tell stories. It was that love of entertaining people, and I just didn't have an outlet for it. Nobody in my life did anything in the arts. My parents worked at Walmart. My dad was a chef for a little while. There was nobody who was creating things art wise, so I didn't know what to do with that energy. When I got into high school, I wrote a few stories, including some stuff that you've seen in Hellion and Bash, and I came up with some of these characters. But again, I didn't know how to get into that world, how to make comic books. And so I went to college, dropped out of college, got married, had kids, did all that stuff in between. And right around, like right before COVID, my wife and I were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. What was our next step in life? We have two kids. I'm working out. I'm like mid-level manager, boring corporate suit, suit and tie, making meetings to schedule more meetings. And I hated it, man. I wrote about car parts all day and it was awful. Like, you know what's boring about car parts? Everything. There's not a single thing that's interesting about just like, even if you're a car person, describe brake parts all day and it is not a blast. And so one of my coworkers was an artist, and I brought her the story. I said, "Hey, what could I write that you would draw for me? Like, I have this idea, I want to make a comic book, but I'll write anything, because I always heard Robert Kirkman would go to an artist and say, what do you like to draw? So that's what I started doing. And she said unicorns and dragons. And that's where Growing Up came from. That was my first comic book I ever put out. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's
I
like Never
haven't.
Ending
Yeah.
Story. Yeah, it's like Never Ending Story meets Toy Story. This young girl is cleaning out her bedroom, and she's throwing away all of her childish stuff because she's about to become a teenager. So I got to get rid of this stuff. And you see the last moments of these worlds as they're ending. So you see like the Power Rangers fighting a guy until a giant tornado comes and takes them away because she's throwing out her action figures. And the Lisa Frank world with all of the hypercolor and the dolphins and the dogs playing on the beach. You know, the storm's taking them away. And that was the first time I ever wrote a story. And I found an artist on Fiverr and like made this. It's an okay comic book for a first try, but I got hooked. Nobody bought it. I sold 0 copies. Now I give it away. If you want a copy, email me comics at campykilledcreations.com. You can get a copy of Growing Up. It's all yours. It's the thing I give away at Halloween time with candy, of course. I don't just make them read my bad comic books. Full size Snickers and a comic book.
Nice.
But that was the hook, man. I fell in love with it. I started meeting other creators, hunting down people on ArtStation and DeviantArt and Instagram, asked them if they wanted to work with me. And I started doing a little webtoon myself called D and Do This, about a bunch of goobers playing D&D together. And you find these other people with these passions, and it's hard not to just do comic books. And eventually, right around the time of Tokyo Fire, I was like, I'm going to do this for real. And my job sucks and they don't care about me. My little girl, she's got asthma and she needed her inhaler one day. And she was being babysat like miles away. So I had to ditch out of a meeting. I was in 2 meetings at the same time because they overbooked me. And my daughter needed her inhaler. And I'm still in both of these meetings doing the best I can to do both. And I'm driving to bring my little girl her inhaler. And I was yelled at about something or another that did not matter. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. Closed my computer, never opened it again. Quit, made Tokyo Fire. That's the story. That's, if you want to like convince someone to go make comic books, just show them how much corporate does not care about them. They're gonna go make art.
I love it. I love it, man. So if someone wants to pick up Tokyo Fire, and your other title that you mentioned, how do they get that? Do you have like a site, or are you selling them on TikTok? Like, how do people get their hands on that last title?
I mean, I do sell them on TikTok. So I'm at TS Luther, and I have my own comic shop on there. It's like a separate account, but they're all linked together. CBK shop, I think, is what it is on there. But campykilledcreations.com is my website. It's got everything I've ever done. And if you go and check out the new project over on Kickstarter, there's a catch up tier that you can get everything I've ever published through my company, at least.
I love it. I love it, man. Well, let's go ahead and pop that up. I would love for you to kind of walk us through.
Sure.
So here we go. Here is the current Kickstarter that is live right now. Congratulations on hitting your goal. But if anybody's ever tried to create a comic book before, $500 isn't going to do it. It's just not, right? It's just not, right? And to be honest, 1,700 is not going to do it either, man. So, congrats to you, man. You still have 21 days to go. You got 28 backers. Your goal has been hit, so that's fabulous. But let's be real, man. A comic book is going to cost, depending on the quality and all that good stuff, probably closer to the $5,000 range. And that's just the reality. If anybody's creating a comic book, correct us if you're wrong, but I know I create comic books and they're not cheap. And my wife just yells at me saying I have the most expensive hobby in the world. Let's jump through this, TS. We would love to get you some more support if we could help at all. Let's walk through. Can you kind of give us your elevator pitch for Hellion and Bash?
Yeah, I sure can. Thanks so much, man. So, what do you do when a giant monster attacks the city? You can run, you can hide, you can accept your fate and wait for it to get crushed. You can call the superheroes, of course, right? That's what most people would do in Marvel or DC. Or, hear me out, what if you took the chaos caused by the giant monster and you use it as a distraction, and you go and you pilfer the city blind, go steal to your heart's content, do whatever you want because the superheroes are otherwise engaged. And that's the pitch for Hellion and Bash #1. You have this super thief a la Catwoman, Black Hat, that kind of thing, and they go and rob all these different points in the city as the superheroes are busy, even being saved by them a couple of times because nobody is the wiser. But the story goes a little bit deeper than that. There's more to it. I have a whole arc going on. We have several other issues issues finished in the can. So if this one does well, we can tell more. And the story, there's a little bit more of an underbelly of what is a hero? What is a
Yeah.
villain? Is this super thief a super villain because he's stealing things during a giant monster attack? Did he cause the monster attack as the distraction? Are these superheroes actually heroes? Or are they just people with superpowers who sometimes stop giant monsters? And that's the pitch for the story. As it goes, it turns more into a road trip book about the world's greatest thief, the super thief Bash, and the world's greatest sidekick, Hellion, and how they kind of get thrust together and have to run from the superheroes and the supervillains alike. So if you like books like Invincible, Thief of Thieves, Kingsville, you could go check out books like Hellion and Bash.
I love it, man. I love it. So let's walk through some of that. So you kind of went over your pitch. Walk us through this. Is this I assume Hellion and Bash, right?
Those two up front are Hellion and Bash. Hellion's on the left with that gorgeous orange. Bash is on the right in that full like thief getup. And the Spectre behind them is the Gargoyle, the world's greatest detective. Obviously, a very clear Batman analog in this world. So if you read the book, you can see more of him in action. I had a lot of fun writing a character like that because you've read Tokyo Fire. I write a lot of sci-fi, fantasy. This is the first time I got to stretch my legs with some superheroes.
I love it, man. I love it. I love it. So here he is right here. Obviously, he does have kind of a Batman feel, but I love those horns that are coming off his head, man. That looks awesome.
the
Completely
the
different.
gargoyle like
And then the
motif that we went with is
yeah.
really rad. It's kind of original, and part of the reason I wanted to have the family, right? So there's Gargoyle, there's Hellion, there's other people in the Gargoyle crime fighting family. But if you don't know anything about gargoyles, their mythos isn't super deep. They they really were just statues. They don't necessarily come from another thing. What they were supposed to mimic is something like demons, right? So I went with a kind of a demonic motif with Hellion and Gargoyle and a few of the other characters in their family.
Can you talk to us about your artist because the art is dope. Marcus, I think is his name.
Marcus Pedro,
Yeah.
an amazing
Incredible.
artist. Yeah, amazing artist out of Brazil. He mostly did indie stuff there in Brazil. A lot of content that he's made, like he's appeared in a book called Classified several times, which is a webtoon series, but they actually have a different app down there in Brazil. It's called Funktune. I highly recommend it. You got to learn how to read a little bit of Portuguese, but it's worth it. You get some amazing stories from people that you don't see here in the US very often, and a different kind of flavor of stories as well. And Marcus had been working on an amazing portfolio for Marvel, and that's how I found him. I had seen some of his superhero work. He specifically did an amazing portrait of Nova, and I was like, I need to work with this guy. Would he take a chance on me? And he did. He really wanted to do stuff here in the U.S., and he read the script and was like, I have to be the artist on this page. And he started pursuing me actually. So
That's
it
awesome.
really worked out.
It's incredible, man. Yeah, the art looks dope. Love it, man. So you're getting some interior samples here, which is awesome. Like I said, the art looks incredible. This is the main cover, I assume, right? Cover A.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, it looks awesome. So let's get into some of the rewards. Obviously, you got a PDF version, which is perfect, especially for people outside of the US. TS, as you know, this is not your first rodeo when it comes to Kickstarter. Man, I love getting an order from Canada or the UK or Australia until you have to ship that thing off. And it's like $30, man, to ship
It
it.
gets so
And
expensive.
it's
I eat a lot
crazy.
of the international cost. I say
Yeah.
like it's $6 if I'm going to ship it to the US. It's $10 if I ship it anywhere internationally. You know it costs more than $10 to ship anything,
Yeah.
especially if they're getting more than one book or any of the extras, add-ons. It's the same thing like you said, right? Like obviously I set my goal is $500. It cost me a lot more money than $500 to get this book made. But if you want to make indie comic books, you got to care, you got to have the
Yeah.
passion for it. That doesn't always align with the pockets.
Yeah.
And I'm still somewhat of a new creator to some people, especially on Kickstarter. I've done like Tokyo Fire, but I'm new, so I knew I wasn't going to get away with putting $5,000
Yeah.
on the Kickstarter. So 500, I thought would be a good start. That's enough for me to print books. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Awesome, man. So here is the actual title, $10, man. I mean, that's a pretty good deal to jump into a brand new title. And man, it sounds like you already have plans for more. which is great, man, because, investing into a story, knowing that there's going to be more to that story, I think also helps fans jump in that first one. And I could tell you, right, you had Tokyo Fire, you did a Kickstarter, you fulfilled really fast after that. So anybody, there's always, as an indie creator, there's always that worry that, man, I'm going to invest in this. It's going to be a year before I ever see my comic book. That's not the case with TS, man. You're all over it, my friend. So you could trust TS. You could jump in, and he will ship you his comic. I got my Tokyo Fire, which I absolutely love. So here's the package, I guess, that you were talking about that
Yep.
comes with the everything that you've written up to this point, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's the catch up tier. Like you said, like I ship really fast because this is all done, right? Like
Yeah.
Hellion and Bash #1 is already created, drawn. It just needs to go to the printer now. And it's the same thing. Tokyo Fire's done. Growing Up, I did years ago, and this is just a way for people to catch up for what I have published myself. I've appeared in other people's books like Mr. Fish Comics and Lucky
Yeah.
33 Comics, Irrepressible. A lot of the indie guys on here. So if you want to get specifically my stuff from Campy Kill Creations, this is what I own the rights to, is probably
Yeah.
what I should call this package.
Yeah.
It's like I'm allowed to print this without asking for permission.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of the folks that you have written for, I mean, there's a lot of indie creators, but it is really a small community. So we end up kind of knowing each other, and we've all been on each other's programs and stuff like that. And
Right.
I actually got to go to Chicago with Mr. Fish, man, and we had a great time there. The
Oh, that's
nicest
rad.
guy you'll ever meet, man.
Dude, he's awesome. He's been like my mentor through creating comic books. Obviously, he
Yeah.
came a little bit late, but right after I did Tokyo Fire, he kind of took me under his wing, and he's helped me get gigs. I've written everything possible for him. I've done story consulting, I've done editing. He actually lettered Hellion and Bash.
Oh, wow.
So we had a letterer ditch out because they had another gig going on and they couldn't do it in time. And so he took up the lettering duties. And the lettering in the book is amazing. He does such an amazing job. And he actually did several by hand because there's a character in the book, I don't want to spoil too much, that we wanted
Yeah.
to be sinister from the get go. And so he lettered it all normally, typed everything out, and then he went back over it with letter with like by hand so it would seem just a little bit off, and it's like
Wow.
so cool, man.
That's so cool, man. He is. I watch all his videos. Yeah, I think he's a mentor for a lot of us. I think he's been in about 70 comic books. He has several of his own,
He has
but
done
he is,
100 comic books after this
yeah,
one.
that is crazy. Yeah, he's an amazing artist. So again, we're here to talk about Hellion and Bash, but get over to Mr. Fish Comics and check him out. Just an amazing human being and quite the creator himself. But anyways, so then we have the deluxe combo, which comes with a little bit of everything, name added to the book, everything autographed, all that good stuff, right?
Yeah, and I also, so the deluxe combo specifically, I believe starts having scripts in there because when I wrote Tokyo Fire, I had been asked several times through the process. I had funded on Zoop, which is like Kickstarter but just for comic books. If you've ever checked that out, great for people starting out if they want to start crowdfunding but don't know what to do. And I got asked several times for my process, like how do I write a comic book? What's the format? How do I do it? There's not a lot of comic book scripts out there, so I started selling the scripts pretty cheap. They're not expensive to create. But people really dug it. It was one of the biggest things that people added on. Like almost everybody who backed bought a script too.
Oh, wow.
And so I did that for this, and I still get messages, people asking if they can buy the script to Tokyo Fire because I don't have it for sale anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to me. It's not a thing that I thought people would want, but people want to learn how to create, and that's what I'm here for, I guess.
I love it, man. I love it. I think that is so cool, man. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of comic fans, I mean, growing up, right, I would read my comics, sit on my stomach, grab a piece of paper, either trace Spider-Man or try and draw them myself. Then I would try and create my own characters, which are really just bad knockoffs of all my favorite characters I was reading. And then you
Of
would try and
course.
create your own stories, right? And then you get old, you start having kids, a family, all of it goes to the wayside. And then you start to get back into it. And I found myself buying everything I got rid of when I first got married and had
Yeah,
to sell
man.
everything. And yeah, I think, understanding the process as you try to get back into comics and you want to be a creator, man, that is, I think, incredible that you would make your scripts available like that, TS, because I think a lot of people can learn, what the proper process is when it comes to putting a script together, right? Not just from a storytelling standpoint, which obviously is extremely important, but how do you communicate that with your artist so that the artist is also helping to tell that story. Because the reality is, you're not the only storyteller teller in a comic book, right? The art has to confirm what you're saying and also add to the story, right? Because it's a visual medium. And man, it's not easy for a lot of people to do. I could tell you I had my own struggles, just because, I was more, writing for like business, like you, right?
Yeah.
Car parts and stuff like that. I'm on the grocery side, writing about leadership. That's very boring in a comic book if you're writing in that kind of style. So, yeah, I think that's wonderful, man. Congrats on that.
Thank you. I mean, I love writing scripts, and I learned from seeing other creators share their stuff. Neil Gaiman, Matt Fraction, Kelly Sue DeConnick. Those are people that had some scripts online available for me to learn from. And a
Yeah.
big part of what I do, what I recommend to people, is don't stress about the format for your writing for you. Like, as long as it works, like, that's okay. What I would stress about is making sure that it can be translated to the other people who are going to be working on your book. Like you said, you're a storyteller, but you're only a piece of the puzzle. And the most important thing, in my opinion, is for the person that needs to also use the script to make something, to
Yeah.
be able to understand it. So specifically what I do in my scripts, the reason why they're formatted that way is so the artist, the letterer, an editor, anybody who needs to understand the story before it comes to life can.
Yeah.
And I have to answer as few questions as possible so I can go back to writing the next one.
I love it, man. I love it. Walk us through this. This is like the mega package right here, man.
Sure. So if you get the $200 one, that comes with everything. So the catch-up tier we talked about, those scripts, getting your name in the book on the thank you page. You also get your name on the producer page. So like that's on the very front. You look at the credits. It's my name. It's Marcus. It's Fish, and then it's you. You can get a cameo in issue 2. I specifically left there. Like most of issue 2 is already done, but I have several scenes ready to go for anybody who wants to add their character, their OC, their themselves into the book. We did a cameo tier on Tokyo Fire, and it was a blast working with some fans who just wanted to be in a book. So that's available there. I've since way back when, if you saw some of my art, it was terrible. I learned how to draw. It's very similar to Scotty Young. That's who I learned how to do most things from, which I'm a gigantic fan of.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So if you like that kind of artwork, or Jorge Corona, which I'm another big fan of, that's kind of my art style. You can get a commission from me. And then finally, a big seller, one that helped get it funded in under an hour, is the TTRPG one shot with me. If you like superheroes, you get to play a game as a superhero or whatever kind of character you want to be in the Hellion and Bash universe. So we're going to sit down, we're going to play a D&D like game. We've already had several people sign up. I have to run 2 games already. So it's rad. I'm a professional GM in my part-time, and I also run lots of games at home for me and my friends and my family. So I love it. It's a big thing. This Hellion and Bash was born out of a D&D game that I ran.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, and like that universe was the first time I brought it to life, and so was Tokyo Fire. So I'm well versed, and if you want to play D&D with me, this is your chance.
Love it, man. Love it. So here's the team. Here you are. Here's your titles. Pretty awesome, man. There's Mr. Fish right there, Lucky 33, all the folks, Invader, all the folks, Irresistible, or Irrepressible.
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 That's
Couldn't get
and
it out,
Papa
man.
Bear over on TikTok. I got a story coming out
Yeah.
with him, and I'm working on some stuff. Those are the publishers that I'm going to be coming out with mostly in 2025. I have books coming out with all of them, because I don't sleep. So
Yeah. I love it, man.
that's
Here's
Marcus right
Marcus.
there.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome, man.
Go check out
There's
Classifieds if you can read Portuguese. Even if you can't read Portuguese, worth just going and looking at his artwork. It's amazing. And Classifieds is a really good anthology series, very
yeah.
Twilight Zone. Highly recommend it. You got to make a Funktune account, but you can do that part in English.
Yeah, perfect, man. That's awesome. Here's the man, myth, and the legend, Mr. Fish, Lee. And you can see a lot of the titles that he has worked on behind him. And then it just goes through kind of the risks and challenges that we all have to put on our titles. So, man, it's 21 days to go. We got to get you up to at least that $3,500 mark, which I think is very doable in 21 days, TS, if not more, right? That way you're actually paying for all the work that you put
How
into
did
it.
you know that is the actual number of, like, if I hit that, I could break even on this
Yeah.
project? You could clearly make comic books, right? Like, you
Yeah.
understand. what it actually costs. I've had some people talk. By the way, thank you for your support. I see that you're a backer. I really appreciate
Yeah.
that, man.
Yeah.
You got us up to another stretch goal, which is going to be a live Q&A, similar to this probably, but with some of the fans. Probably mostly just people asking what dice we're going to roll for that game, because that's the biggest question I've gotten in the comments. But
Yeah.
man, it's been a blast. It just is expensive, right? Creating indie comic books, we don't do it for the money, right? That's not really how it goes. I'm a worker when it comes to this stuff. This is my job. I do it. Some people call it a hobby, but that's only because I don't make a lot of money. This is my main job. This is what I do day in and day out. That's why if you see me pop up a lot, that's why I'm begging people for gigs all the time. I'm going to beg you later. You need a backup in Kingsville, man. Like I'll do it. I'll do it for free for you. You already gave me $16, so it's the least I can do. But I build that resume so I can get more gigs. I just got a deal with Invader Comic Books to do a book next year, and it's one of my first big like publisher gigs. I
That's
guess you would
awesome.
call it. And that's because I do this day in and day out. So when I make TikToks and I take a break, people get scared. They're like, "Oh, TS gave up." It's like, no, I had to go to work. I had stuff to do, man.
I love it, man. I love it, TS. Well, I love your content, man. You always have really good content on your TikTok. So if you're not following TS, you need to be following TS. Make sure that you get over to the Kickstarter, get that package, man. Tokyo Fire is so dope, man. The art is incredible. I love this storyline. So my
Thank
assumption,
you.
just knowing your writing abilities, Hellion and Bash is going to be a banger as well. So just buy the package where you get both of them. You will not be sorry because both titles are amazing. And then, make sure that you're following. Can you walk through your social media, how people
Sure.
could follow you? That way they could also get their hands on some of these other titles that you're doing for other publishers.
Heck yeah. So you can follow me on TikTok at TS Luther. There's periods after the T and after the S, but at TS Luther. If you search me on there, you're going to see my gorgeous beard. You'll know it's me. And then can'tbekilledcreations.com. Those are the two places that I am always at. I am always posting in those two places. I have an Instagram. I don't post a lot there, so you're not going to find much news. But if you go to TikTok or you go to my website, can'tbekilledcreations.com, you'll find me.
Love it, man. And then as far as like Comic Cons, have you been active at any Comic Cons kind of in that area where you live? You're in Michigan, right?
Yeah, I'm a Midwest
Yeah.
dude. I haven't been because it is so expensive,
Yeah.
and the goal is to be able to table a little bit more. That's a big part of why I was doing this Kickstarter was to get some money to like potentially appear at Motor City Comic Con. And I probably will be there. I don't know if I'll be tabling, but I'll be walking around selling books out of a backpack probably.
Been there, done that, my friend. Yeah, some of those bigger cons are quite expensive.
Yeah, like
To
minimum $400, $500. And let me
yeah.
tell you, when comic books is your main job, $400, $500 is a lot of money.
Especially when you're selling $10 comic books, man.
Oh
That's
man,
a
that's so
lot of
hard.
comic books just to make up for your table. So again, this is not a job that you do to get rich. This is a job that you do because you love doing it. And I'm glad you're doing it, TS. You're an amazing writer, and I cannot wait to get my hands on this current title, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Hellion and Bash, man. It was good, and like I said, Tokyo Fire. Get over and make sure that you pick that one up while you're backing him on this one because you're gonna really love both of them, man.
I appreciate it, man. We actually just started plans for Tokyo Fire #2 because this got funded. I could then message Sky and be like, "Hey, I have money for you. Let's go make
Yeah.
issue 2 finally."
Yeah, I love it, brother. I love it, man. Anything that we're leaving out, TS?
No, that's awesome. Go get Kingsville.
Thank you, thank you.
And check out all my friends on TikTok. If you follow me, you're gonna love my stuff. I talk about writing a lot, but I have so
Yeah.
many other friends on there in our little indie community that are awesome. Irrepressible, Lucky 33, Mr. Fish Comics, the list goes on. Go check us out. We all talk to each other. We're all friends. If you see somebody not interacting with us, it's because they're successful. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
It's not because we don't like them or they don't like us. It just means that they're actually getting work done and we're just bullshitting on TikTok, you know?
Yeah. You got to have a little bit of both, I think. It's all
Yeah,
good.
yeah, a little bit.
Well, TS, man, it was a pleasure finally having you on. I know we've been talking about this for a while.
Thanks for making it happen, man.
No, I'm glad that we were able to get together, man. You're welcome anytime. Even for some of these other titles that you're doing for other publishers, I would love to support you and make sure that people know where they could find all of your storytelling abilities, man. So thank you for joining me. I will post this tomorrow, man. We're going to have a blast pushing this out. 21
Sounds
more
good,
days, man. Let's see if we can't get you as much support as possible.
Run it up. I love it, man.
All right, TS. Until next time, my friend. Hope you have an amazing week.
Thanks, man. You too. Bye.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.